Why don't you imagine yourself walking around as a man 10,000 years ago? What would be important to you?
The breakdown of the family structure has been the most detrimental to young men because so many boys and men are growing up without a father.
In the work that we do, we talk a lot about context because it will motivate you to bigger and better things.
With the whole feminization of our society, they put a lot of weight on boys to look at at their feelings as opposed to thinking through things logically.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior. And on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
What is it to be a man? The principles are timeless. They don't just apply today, but a lot of men today are confused about what it is to be a man. And I want you to tell me from your point of view, what is it to be a man? And how does a man live today as an honorable, masculine man?
Well, that's a lot of questions in one sentence there.
I know. That's what I do, man.
So what I found over the years, being a man can be terribly confusing if you look around you and see all the stuff that's going on. But I always say to men that ask me the question, the first thing is, why don't you imagine yourself walking around as a man 10,000 years ago? What would be important to you as a man if you would walk around 10,000 years ago? What that means is that you can then start thinking about what was really important: survival, protection, a place to stay, food. These were the important things that counted for every man. That was a day-to-day thing. It's like most animals do today. They wake up in the morning and they go and try to get their food for the day. That's important. You have to find a place to stay, procreation, you make babies. All these things are the basics for me as a man. There is no other option because that's how we as men have come here. This is how we've survived for hundreds of thousands of years, or God knows how long we've been around. But there were no cars, there was no money, there was no written language. It didn't matter if you could read or write. You were lucky if you could communicate with the guy next door. So those are the important things, and those are the basics. Now you can expand on that, and we have to, if you go into this kind of if you go into this century or in these times, right? Because it has changed, but it isn't. The basic principles haven't changed. That is what it is to be a man. So if you talk from, as a man, I want to make a lot of money, that has nothing to do with you being a man. It's nice that you want to make a lot of money. There is nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't define you as a man. Because back then there was no money. It didn't define any of the hundreds of thousands of ancestors that you had before. So why would it define you now? It comes more down to what is important. If you lay in your bed, taking your last breath when you're 85, does it matter that you made a lot of money? Or did it matter that you had a lot of good relationships with people, that people said from, this is a man I used to go to and, for help, because he always had words of wisdom. He always knew how to help me through things. Or is it from, he made a lot of money? To me, that's what, helps you get through these times as far as I'm concerned. If you, for example, dedicate your life to becoming a researcher, which is an honorable thing to do, and you lay on your bed and you can say to yourself, what I did made really a big difference in, the human race, or, it helped humanity in moving forward, then you led a really good life. Now, if you can do that, and you've been a benefit to humanity, then to me, that is a good life. That is a good, you did a good job. Now, that doesn't exactly define you as a man, of course, I understand that. But it certainly is one of the things that, these are the things that you need to look back to when you get old.
I think fundamentally a man has a overarching purpose. Within that, he can have a lot of many purposes, but there's one overarching purpose that will define your life. You can't have more than that because you just don't have the ability to focus in that way. Like you said, I'm a man, which means I'm a simple creature, and I'm a very simple man. I can focus on one thing at a time, and I can't focus on 10 things at a time.
That's correct. So for men, it's actually good to go out and have a job because it'll allow them for, 8 hours in a day to focus on something different. And the purpose overlaps. That means that in your job, you can have different purposes. You can be, leading men or leading teams and, creating this and that. These are all great purposes, right? But it has nothing to do with your overall purpose of providing and having your family. That is just a tool. That 8 hours is a tool to serve that other purpose. The kids, the family, the wife, So for me, being honorable is an important thing as a man. For me, as a man, providing and building are important things in my life. For me as a man, the truth is important too. That doesn't mean I always tell the truth. So now and then I just don't tell it. But that's another story. If you start lying, you're not honorable, and it becomes a web of complicated things that you can't keep track of anymore. So to me, that's not in my vocabulary. Yes, sure. So now and then I say that the fish that I caught wasn't 8 inches, but 10 inches. That's, bending the truth a little, but that's not what this is about. For me, this is, being a man is being honorable, being truthful, being clear on your purpose and doing whatever you can to fulfill that purpose.
The breakdown of the family structure has been the thing that has been the most detrimental to young men because so many boys and men are growing up without a father, and the jails are full of them. I think the last time I heard it was over 80% of the men that are imprisoned don't have a father or a solid father figure at home when they grow up. That's astronomical, when you realize that only about 40% of the population actually grows up that way. So those are a lot of the issues. I mean, there's tons of stuff going on out there that makes masculinity look kind of old-fashioned or boobish or something. And none of that, of course, that all leads men astray when the most powerful masculine men I know, what's powerful about them is their sense of integrity and honor. That's where man achieves his power and his success. And in fact, those characteristics can take you a long way in the business world. They can also get you screwed if you're not paying attention. But those two things, having integrity and honor and having a moral compass and so on, those types of ways of being are what the world actually needs from masculinity and what men actually need to maximize their place in this world. And yet, there's very few role models of that. And so where does a man find this behavior? If his friends aren't exhibiting that behavior, where does a man find that model? It's not going to be on TV. It's unlikely to be in the movies, with rare exceptions. So we're creating a circumstance where men don't know what it means to be a man, and that's showing up in all sorts of things. So men are now, less than half of the university graduates, considerably less. And each year, when a new group of students graduate high school, that number goes down. And it's not that education's everything. It absolutely isn't. There's many men of great honor and integrity. They're fabulous role models that are in the trades, and that never needed to do that. Where do those role models exist? And where do you find them? Is the question, I think, for most men. And I think that, for me as a former president of a men's group, the obvious answer is in men's groups, but not even all of them fit that bill.
The 4 key points that I got out of this. Point number 1 is, with relation to women, what women say versus what they mean in terms of what they want in a man. Point number 2 is powerful man, integrity, honor, moral compass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And point number 3 is men are confused. They don't know what it is to be a man, right?
Yeah,
they
I
really
think all
don't.
of them talk about, yes.
Man. And point number 4 is the best way for them to figure this out is with other men, men's groups. And not all men's groups are created equal. Let's shift into the next point, that a source of a man's power, a powerful man is a man who derives that from his integrity, his honor, and his moral compass. And I know we've been talking about that, but let's address it head on. So why do you say that?
Well, because, life is confusing and difficult. And it's constantly throwing new shit at you that you're not sure what to do with. The world moves fast. There's a lot of changes that go on in family units and relationships and in your career. And when you have that compass, when you know what it means to be that man, it's always there for you. It guides you throughout all the decisions you need to make. But more than anything, it gives you a level of confidence that even in a shitstorm, you know who you are, and you're not going to be bent or changed or altered or modified. And other people see men like that, and they may never vocalize it, but they see you and they have respect for it, even if they're not that. And ultimately, it gives you a source of it gives you a foundation when the rest of the world tries to destroy your foundation, which they'll do a few times in a lifetime, whether that's a divorce or a loss of career or the death of a loved one, loss of your father. I mean, there's just all these things that occur, that just come up out of nowhere, or even that you see coming, sickness, that can rock a man deeply and be deeply disturbing and difficult for the man to deal with. And having those things as a foundation, you can't knock a man off of. So the world can be going to shit around him, and he can know, yeah, but I know this about me. And that tells me this is how I need to act. This is what I need to do. I'll give you an example. So for me, personal one. So I've been married for, 15 years or something. 14 years. My wife comes to me one day and says she's leaving. Okay. Hadn't been a great marriage the last 7 years. We had a good partnership, but there was no sex, not really any love. We kind of were evolved into friends like some time ago. Sort of understood, whatever. It still hurt. I didn't want, my kids were 12 and 7, and I was 7 when my mom left my father. It was devastating to me. I didn't want my kids to go through that. I figured I could make it till the youngest was 16. We're talking 5 more years or 9 more years. So anyway, my daughter goes into my wife's phone, and she's like, there's nobody else. Don't worry about that. That's not what this is about. Anyway, she finds all these sexual-based texts between my ex-wife, then wife, I guess, and her boyfriend, or the man she was having an affair with. And she shows them to me as a 12-year-old. So, what I wanted to do was to take those texts and show them to her and call her a lying cunt. And you know, like, and let her know that I knew she was a liar and that she was having an affair and that she was destroying our family for that, all this stuff, all this emotional vitriol, right? What I did do was nothing. Nothing. I folded up the phone. I handed it back to my daughter after talking to some other men that had been through it, that know, you know, that had made a lot of mistakes about stuff like this. And in fact, one of those men had actually made the mistake. He said, Jeb, fold up, you know, you're right, fold it up, put it back in your wife's pocket, tell your daughter never to say anything about it, and you never say anything about it. So if you bring this up, it'll cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. She'll make you pay. So that's what I did. And unless my wife ends up watching this pod, she doesn't know today, and I know. And why would, you know, and as a result of not taking that information, what I did was decide to put the health of my family and my finances ahead of my emotion. That's what my integrity told me to do, because I knew that they were right, that if she wanted to lawyer up and make divorce difficult, she had the right, she had the ability to do that. She hadn't worked in 10 years. So it's going to be ugly financially either way. And she ended up settling for way less than she could have got. Why? Because I was a man being honorable and integrity to my family, not to her. This wasn't about what she deserved. She deserved the emotional outrage. My children didn't deserve it.
No.
I didn't deserve the loss of money. And my children didn't need the additional trauma in what was already a horrible circumstance. So my compass was there for me in the worst possible time.
Wow.
And the other men in the men's group that had been through divorce, believe me, I was not reaching out to single men for advice at this moment,
Yeah,
or even happily married men. I was talking specifically to men who had been through divorce. Mostly, and most of their advice went along the lines of, this is what I did, don't do that. And one of the four men that I was dealing with in the sort of support circle, if you will, had actually done something very similar. He'd actually called the phone number of the man that the woman was having the affair with and asked for her on the phone. And he hung up on him, but it cost him dearly. It cost him financially, and it cost him in terms of how much strife was going to occur. Yet he gained absolutely nothing from it other than a 45-second emotional release. So your compass provides, like, having, attempting to walk the world as a man of honor and integrity will come up for you multiple times when the shit hits the fan, and it will always give you confidence, but it will also give you a fallback kind of default way of being when the world is trying to knock you off of your foundation. That's a foundation that you can't knock a man off of if he's determined to stay on it. And it's easy. Once it becomes your habit, it's easy. Doesn't mean temptation doesn't come up. My brain still tells me, oh, I could just do this. I can bullshit my way out of this. I can do, that still goes on. The voice in my head continues to do that.
We want to talk about a topic that I think is critical for men that are interested in living their best life, that are interested in creating the life of their dreams, a successful life, the life that they've always wanted to live. And the starting point, the foundation for a life that you've always wanted to live is the context in which you live from. I'd like you to explain what is the context in the context of what we're talking about. You like how I did that there?
Yeah, I like how you did that there. So context is everybody's carrying one at all times. Context is, I hate my fucking job. I don't want to get up in the morning. I don't want to go to work. I just want to sit on the couch, watch sports, and drink beer. That's how you show up in the world. That's your context. I hate my job. So you're not happy. You're disgruntled, probably not happily married. And a lot of us, well, all of us, if we're not paying attention to our context, we're carrying a default context at all times. And, if I'm walking down the street with a pissy attitude, every little thing that happens to me is going to piss me off. Like, get out of my way. This old bastard's going too slow, whatever it is. So in the work that we do, we talk a lot about context because it will motivate you to bigger and better things. If you check your context every day, like, we're getting on here, we're getting, some technical glitches. So you could either get pissed off and start swearing about shit, or the context is, it's no problem, we'll fix it, carry on. So this is where context is so important. And, a lot of married men I've coached over the years, their context is, if their wife changes, their marriage will be happy. Well, yeah, no. It's, you need to change how you are. So how we show up, and that's it. Context is, how do you need to be? If Baloo wants me on a podcast and he calls me and goes, Richmond, I'm really fucked here. I need some help with my podcast. Probably not going to jump on. Whereas Baloo calls me up and goes, look, Richmond, I got some stuff I want to talk about. You willing to join me? Yeah, why not? It can be very subtle at times too. But kind of my go-to phrase is, context is everything. Your context determines how you show up in the world each and every day in every way.
Context is everything. When you say context is everything, what do you mean by that?
How I show up. Like, I got this beautiful redhead photograph behind me. How I show up since she's been gone, I can be miserable. I can be, sad. I can't think of the word I was going to say. Or I can get up in the morning, be grateful for what I had, and move forward every day. Do I miss her? Fuck yeah. I got the rest of my life to live. I know she wouldn't want me being, down and out and morose about everything. So my context is, enjoy the day, treasure the memories, and move forward.
If a man isn't deliberately choosing and crafting his context, the context that he's likely going to be operating from 9 times out of 10 is not going to be the best possible context. It's going to be a context that's driven by his default way of operating, by shitty patterns, by circumstances that buffet him and create a certain reaction in him. Talk a bit more about a created context, a chosen context, versus a default context.
Well, okay. Let me just toss something in the middle there too, is if you're interacting with other people, the one with the bigger context wins. So if my context is low and shitty and my job is miserable and my boss has a let's get this done attitude, it's not going to make me happy, but his context is more powerful than mine. That's where default context tends to become not always negative, but it tends to lean towards negative. I find in my experience, I've never done a scientific study on that, but the lower the context, the less driven you are to really achieve things. And this is, we keep bumping into purpose here too, because if my purpose is very small, my context is very small. So if I'm playing at a game of just making the house payments and keeping a roof over my head, well, it's probably not going to be all that enjoyable for me. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be frustrating. Whereas if I can look ahead and, start to take ownership of where I want to go in my life, then my context has to go up because I've got things I need to accomplish.
So if a man's listening to this and he has ambition and he has a desire to attain, to achieve, to be better, he better pay attention to his context. That's what you're saying, correct?
Huge.
So
Yeah.
the bigger your ambition in life, the more critical it is that you have a chosen and created, a deliberately chosen and created context versus a default context. While over here, you've got the forces of communism that are basically trying to destroy our society from within, and they're trying to destroy traditional masculinity, because if you make men weak, it's easy to take over a society. And that's what's happening here right now. We are at the grassroots doing something about it. At the grassroots, we're creating a group. We've got a vision to have this be bigger, to have this really at some point go society-wide. But what I want to see happen in our world today is I want to see men understanding that, yes, you compete with men out there, but there are men that you don't compete with. There are men that are your brothers and can be your brothers, that you're men, number one. And even the men you compete with, at some level, you're all fucking men. At some level, you're all fucking men. And as men, you've got to stick together, because if you don't stick together one by one, the forces of darkness are going to fucking break you. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the other problem too with the whole feminization of our society is they put a lot of weight on boys to look at at their feelings as opposed to thinking through things logically. And this is why I was saying you need men sometimes outside of your family, because you'll need someone that can think through a situation logically rather than through feelings, because I know it happens to me all the time. I there's times I just don't feel like doing certain things, and I'll make decisions on that, but it's not always the right decision. And there's a lot of emphasis in the school system for these kids to really go through these feelings. But like, it's okay for a man to acknowledge that he has feelings, but shouldn't be making his decisions based on those feelings. And I'm not talking about man feeling sick or ill or something like that. Like, yeah, okay, if your body's not well, you got to treat your body. But our decisions should be made logically. That's why men in sports, like two boxers can be beating the shit out of each other, and then once that thing's done, they shake hands and they're friends again, right? Because it's a logical thing for them. And women will hate each other for months. What's that? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like like they put on the face before the match to try and sell it out, right? So they can get paid, whatever, right? Like it's what they do. So they put on this we call it mask, right? That they hate each other or whatever, and all that jazz. But yeah, they'll beat each other up, and then 20 minutes later, after they're stitched up and shit, they're out eating dinner and going for drinks, whatever, and it's all good, right? And that's the whole thing. Like in sports, it's just loaded with it. But like you get two women, traditionally they hold grudges. Like I had a sister. I have a sister, and she would get into like the slightest little argument with a friend, and like that's it. They were not friends anymore. Like that friendship was done. And she's out finding new friends and whatever. But like my brother, myself, like we've had more or less the same friends growing up, almost right through from elementary school right through high school. Like there's been some additions and some changes because some guys went to different schools and shit, but more or less like the same friends were around. Like it was the same ones for 15, 20 years.
Yeah, that's good.
My sister, not at all.
Well, part of what allows men to keep their brotherhood in place is to do things together as men. So one is men that are part of a brotherhood need to like regularly get together to break bread together. So you got to eat together. That's one way in which men spend time together in a relationship together in brotherhood. So just like go out and make food together, go out to a restaurant, whatever. That's got to be a part of what you do. Secondly, it's good when you are competing together, playing sports against each other or with each other. That's fucking fun. Or doing other competitive shit. So I think, Lewis, I want to challenge you. Inside of Sovereign Man, you're pretty clever with this sort of competitive, gamesmanship, come up with some shit the men can do that'd be fun and gamey, right? I think it'd be good. And let's get a few men to go out and do that. Maybe we go out axe throwing, you know, you and I can captain 2 axe throwing teams or whatever, right? That could be kind of fun.
We've done axe throwing, yeah.
Yeah. I won too. So let's go do some shit like that.
We do, there's archery tag. There's all kinds of things.
Archery, yeah, stuff like that. So that's good. And then when they are working together toward a purpose. Now, inside of what we do with Sovereign Man, we have a purpose to uplift and uphold manhood and masculinity. That's the sort of thing that also makes men want to be a part of something with other men. So if you're looking to be part of a brotherhood, make sure that this element of breaking bread together, competing together, and working toward a common cause or a common purpose together is a big part of what you do, because that is going to make the brotherhood last. Otherwise, it'll just become a fucking social club and eventually it'll disintegrate. And that's not what you want in a brotherhood. You want a brotherhood to be something where people can actually, be a part of it on an ongoing basis. And you want that brotherhood to last. Doesn't matter what your fucking feelings are. That's, the whole point. Manhood, masculinity is all about doing what you need to do. And part of brotherhood is your brothers will exhort you to actually do what you need to do, not what you feel like doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then when, if you have, certain feelings of we usually call it taking arrows and so forth. And that's really when you need a band of brothers, 4 or 5 men, to deal and let that suppressed energy out, and that's usually, comes in forms of hurt and loss. And that could be anything from, man's dog dying to losing a family member to losing your job. You take on these feelings of hurt and pain and you suppress them, but, men have a way of releasing that energy in a way that's constructive and not so much destructive, right? You get, there's a lot of stories of men that, alcoholics that have, brutal uprisings, and they perpetuate that shit at home. Yeah, because that's all they know how to do, and they don't have an outlet for it, until they get home, and now they're inebriated, so their control is lacking, and first thing that comes in the view is their target, wife, kids, whatever. It's not right. But these are men that don't have that channel to let that out. That's why
they need brotherhood. And I want to encourage, if you're a man and you're listening to this and you know that what we're saying is true and it's resonating with you, and you need this and you don't really have this, I want to encourage you to come to sovereignman.ca and check out the Sovereign Circle. It's one of the tabs in there. Check out the Sovereign Circle. Come and look to be a part of it and bring brotherhood into your life, because it'll elevate you everywhere that you are concerned about, and it will help you be better. If you want to be in better shape, this will help you do that. If you want to have better relationships with your woman, or if you want to save your relationship because it's gone too far gone, this will help you do that. If you want to make more money, this will help you do that. If you want to have the balls to do big things with your life rather than just live life as a placid, timid, second-rate version of yourself, this will help you do that. Every man needs brotherhood. Brotherhood brings out the best in a man. Brotherhood makes a man push himself beyond where on his own he would go. Because on your own, there's a certain mental limit that you have.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.